Pokemon Red and Blue are notorious for basically being held together with thumbtacks and duct tape. In other words, they're infamous for being glitchy. Some of the most famous glitches include finding glitch Pokemon like Missingno, battling glitch trainers like Professor Oak, and even editing the game's memory by moving items in the bag. Today, we're going to talk about a glitch that warps us from Pallet Town right to the Hall of Fame, allowing us to beat the game in just 3 minutes, but we can also go anywhere else. Unfortunately, however, this trick only works in the Japanese versions of the game. While the glitch technically exists in the international releases, we can't do it early in-game, and we won't wrong warp. With that aside, let's get into it. The summary of the route goes like this. Grab your potion from the PC, get your starter Pokemon as normal and go to Viridian City, grab the parcel, and start to head towards Pallet Town. On the way, open your bag, move the cursor over the parcel, and press select. Now exit the menu by pressing B twice, and initiate a wild Pokemon battle. In the battle, go to the Pokemon menu, and then press A. Your Pokemon's name will become glitchy. Now exit the Pokemon menu, enter the fight menu, exit the fight menu, and run from the battle. From there, enter Pallet Town, and walk another 83 to 86 steps, and then enter your rival's house. If executed correctly, you will be taken to Route 7, or the route east of Celadon City, instead of the rival's house. From there, walk to the Celadon Mansion. Enter and then exit the mansion, and walk a linear path straight to the department store. When you enter the department store, you will be warped directly to the Hall of Fame. As for why we're taken to the Hall of Fame, though, well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go through the route again, but this time let's take a closer look and go through exactly what's happening as we set up and execute the Dokokashira door glitch. Our adventure starts in our room. The first thing we're going to do is get an item. It doesn't matter what the item is, as long as we have it before we get the parcel. The best way to do this is to withdraw the potion from our PC, but we can also get the sample potion from the Mart worker in Route 1, or take the hidden potion in a tree in Viridian City. But to keep things simple, let's withdraw the potion from the PC. It's right there, and it's also the fastest of the three. From here, we try to leave Pallet Town, and like normal, Oak stops us, takes us to his lab, and lets us pick a starter Pokemon. It doesn't matter which Pokemon you pick, nor does it matter whether or not you win the rival fight. Just keep on going. Now walk to the Mart in Viridian City to get the parcel. Because we already picked up a potion earlier, the parcel will be the second item in our bag. Keep this in mind for later. So now we're going to walk back to Pallet Town, and here's where we start to actually execute the glitch. At some point, go into the items menu and press select on the parcel, and then exit the menu by pressing B twice. We do this because even when we exit the menu, the game remembers where we left the cursor, which is important because it enables us to do a swap later. The memory address CC35 determines the state of the cursor. If we haven't selected anything, as indicated by the cursor being all black, its value is 0. If we press select on the first item in the list, the cursor will turn white and the value at CC35 will be set to 1. If we press select on the second item in the list, the same thing will happen, but the value at CC35 will be set to 2 instead. If we select the third item, the value will be set to 3. This memory value basically tells the game which item in the list we have selected. Because the parcel is the second item in our bag, when we press select over it, the value at CC35 will be set to 2. So now we exit the menu twice by pressing B. Due to an oversight, if we exit the menu, the value at CC35 doesn't change, which means the game still thinks we've selected an item. More specifically, since its value is still 2, it still thinks we've selected the second item in the list. However, if we access the items menu again, or enter the Pokemon menu via the start menu, which is usually what we do, the value is set back to 0. Since we need the value to be 2 to execute the glitch, we can't access the items menu or Pokemon menu via the start menu. But there is something we can do. Due to another oversight, the value at CC35 is not set back to 0 if we open the Pokemon menu in a battle, so that's why we need to enter a Pokemon battle to execute the glitch. So let's exit out of the menu entirely, because we don't need it anymore. The value at CC35 stays at 2, which means the game still thinks we're selecting the second item. From there, we initiate a wild Pokemon battle. The first thing we're going to do is open the Pokemon menu. Remember that this does not reset the value at CC35. That means the game thinks we've selected the second item on the list, which in this case is the second Pokemon in our party, but that Pokemon doesn't exist. Wait, what? Well, let's take a step back and look at normal gameplay. To swap Pokemon in the party, we go to the Pokemon menu, first pick a Pokemon we want to swap, press A, and select Switch. This sets the value at CC35 to whichever Pokemon in the party we selected. Remember that CC35 is also responsible for items in the bag. But anyway, if we selected the first Pokemon in the party, the value at CC35 is set to 1. If we selected the second Pokemon in the party, the value is set to 2, much like the items in the bag. and then to switch with another Pokemon, we hover over them with the cursor and press A. So let's go back to our situation. Before we entered the battle, we set the value at CC35 to 2. So when we open the Pokemon menu, the game thinks we've selected the second Pokemon and we're trying to switch it with another one in our party. The only problem is that we don't have a second Pokemon, so when we perform the swap, the game switches our first Pokemon with a non-existent second Pokemon. So how does this take us to the Hall of Fame? Well, let's take a look at how the game determines which Pokemon are in our party. The value of D163 corresponds to how many Pokemon we have in our party. In our case, this value is 1. The value of D164 in memory is the internal ID of our first Pokemon. The value at D165 is the internal ID of our second Pokemon. After the IDs of all the Pokemon in our party, there's an FF in memory. This serves as a terminator and lets the game know that we don't have any more Pokemon. In our case, since we don't have a second Pokemon, the terminator is placed where the second Pokemon ID is usually stored. So when we switch the first Pokemon with our non-existent second Pokemon, we're swapping the ID of our first Pokemon with the ID of the second Pokemon. But since we don't have a second Pokemon, we end up switching the ID of the first Pokemon with the terminator. And here's where the game gets confused. Since we always have at least one Pokemon in our party, the game starts looking for the terminator at the location of the ID of our second Pokemon, which is stored in D165. But since we switched the first and second Pokemon, the terminator is located in D164. So the game starts looking at D165, skipping over the real terminator, but since it's pretty far away, the game gets tricked into thinking our party is huge. Like over 100 Pokemon huge. So we end up with a party of many glitch Pokemon, and these glitch Pokemon ultimately end up corrupting our data, which is what enables us to warp to the Hall of Fame or anywhere else in the game. But how does that work? There's a series of blocks in memory that is responsible for storing more precise information about our Pokemon. The block of memory spanning from D16B to D196 is responsible for storing everything about the first Pokemon in the party. Its ID, current HP, level, status, types, moves, trainer ID, experience, everything. Right after that block, starting at D197, is the block of memory that stores all the information about our second Pokemon. Starting at D1C3 is the next block, which stores information about the third Pokemon, and so on and so forth. Right after the sixth Pokemon's data, we have the data for our trainer name, then the nicknames of our Pokemon, then Pokedex information, then items, then money, and a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with our party. Since we normally only can have 6 Pokemon at the most, this isn't a problem. But since the game thinks we have more than 6 Pokemon, the game keeps on going, interpreting these data as Pokemon party data, and it keeps going and going until we run out of Pokemon. Here's where corruption can happen. If a place in memory happens to coincide with the status of our 7th, 8th, and other extra Pokemon, and the bit that determines being poisoned is set, the game will think the corresponding Pokemon is poisoned. That means that every 4 steps, their HP will be decremented by 1. But since the data actually correspond to other things, and not valid Pokemon data, we end up altering other important data. Because of this, sometimes while we're walking, the game will give us a message saying one of our Pokemon has fainted. If this happens, ignore it. Anyway, one such value is the value at D335, which stores the ID of the map we go to when we walk on a certain warp tile. Normally, the value of D335 is set to a constant depending on what map we're in. For example, if we're in Pallet Town, its value will be set to 39 in decimal, or 0x27 in hexadecimal, and the warp tile is on our rival's door. When we walk into our rival's house, the game knows to take us to our rival's house because the value at D335 is 39, and the map ID of our rival's house is 39. But since this number gets decremented by poison damage, and we take poison damage every 4 steps, the warp changes every 4 steps. If we walk 4 steps, D335 is set to 38, and walking into our rival's house will take us to our room. If we walk 8 steps, D335 is set to 37, and walking into our rival's house will take us to the first floor of our house. Since the map ID of the Hall of Fame is 118, it's faster for us to warp to a place that sets D335 to something larger than that. One such place is Celadon City, which sets D335 to 122. It just so happens that Route 7, which is right next to Celadon City, has a map ID of 18, which works out really nicely. So our goal is to set D335 to 18 to warp to Route 7. To do that, we need to decrement D335 from 39 to 18, which means we need to take poison damage 21 times. Since we receive poison damage every 4 steps, we need to walk around 84 steps. So when we set the warp ID, we will be taken to Route 7. From there, we travel west to Celadon and enter the mansion, which takes us to the interior of the mansion. Not all warp tiles are compatible with the Dokokashira door glitch, which is why we specifically walk into our rival's house. Walking to our house or Oak's lab will not trigger the glitch. So what happens when we walk into a building that doesn't warp us? Well, the value at D335 is reset to what it should be, so if we were to enter and exit our own house, D335 would be set to the proper number for Pallet Town, which is 39. That also means that if we mess up, we can enter and exit our house to reset everything and try again. But this happens with the mansion too. We enter and exit the mansion to reset the warp ID to 122. 122 is the map ID of the first floor of the Celadon department store, so naturally the location of the proper warp tile is on the right entrance of the store. But on our way there from the mansion, we have to walk, which means we take poison damage and decrement the warp ID. Ultimately, we take poison damage 4 times in our journey, setting the warp ID to 118 and taking us to the Hall of Fame. I hope this helps you get an idea of exactly what's happening when we execute the Dokokashira door glitch, so you can go out and apply it yourself in any way you want. The power to wrong warp anywhere is now in your hands. Thank you for watching.